Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever in the world you might be. I am Nicole BC, and you know everything. Alrighty, so we're well into our summer series of musicians, aka artists, who disrupted their industry. And disclaimer, I am not an expert on any one of these artists. And in this instance, I am not even a fan. I think everybody else up until this point, I have genuinely enjoyed their art. Maybe not everything they've put out, but I genuinely enjoy that as well. I like it when someone challenges me, and I like to disagree. So I appreciate when an artist evolves and changes and takes me along for that journey, but in a way that I might go kicking and screaming. This artist I'm still very on the fence about. And there's a variety of reasons for that. Mainly, I haven't listened to a lot of their music, but that's because there isn't a lot yet. There are a few standout characteristics of this artist that I do believe puts them into the category of true artist, as I like to say, which is simply someone who can't not make their art, right? Someone who is willing to invest so significantly in themselves and their beliefs and their creative practices that they'd make it a business. They make it their business. So as per all of these episodes, what I am doing, my intention is to layer entrepreneurship and disruption and creation and visionary leadership and trailblazing and rule breaking onto their career as a creative. And again, one of my challenges with this particular artist is they're young. They're hip, they're new, they are breakout, if you will. And I know you know this artist, Chappell Roan. So this is also your fault because this was a listener request. So I'm doing this for you know who you are. And I appreciate it because you've challenged me to do some research, to listen to a few interviews. Again, I'm probably going to rely a little heavily on my notes for this one, only because I had to do my research. I literally had never listened to a full song of this artist's outside of the ones that are kind of force fed to you when somebody is just everywhere all of the time. Also, Chappell really broke out. She was one of those 10-year overnight success, which I really actually, that's the one thing, the one resounding characteristic that kept getting echoed back at me, which a lot of the artists that I worked with also fell into that category where when they hit big because they were ready for it. How were they ready? They had been practicing their craft for a decade. And if you know that 10,000 hours, that's generally, you make it your full-time job for about 10 years, you're going to hit 10,000 hours, right? So Chappell Roan, we'll get into their history, but here she does qualify. She did earn her stripes to be in my disruptive creators summer series. And here's what the research showed. She didn't simply define herself as an artist. She's building a cultural framework. She's not just making pop music. She's remixing femininity, queerness, fame, and performance on her own damn terms. She's part of a new entrepreneurial wave where the brand isn't just personal, it's political and theatrical. How new is this? I don't know. You look at some of the people we've just talked about, like Beau, some of the people that are going to be in this series. I don't want to spoil it. But, I always go back to Madonna when I look at artists like this. And it's just how much permission did Madonna give these theatrics, these people to rebrand and redefine themselves with every album cycle? I mean, Beau absolutely gets credit for that as well. There's a ton of artists that just naturally recognized my creative work, my body of work is seasonal. And you can go back hundreds, if not thousands of years to see when people were going through a thing, they created a lot of blue paintings, right? Anywho, I digress. Camp plus critique, glitter by guts. That's Chappell. Why she qualifies for what would Chappell Roan do episode, not just because you asked me to, but she is disrupting norms. And if at the very least, for a whole bunch of people who have never had somebody challenge the status quo in the way that she is, and as public of a space as she is, and I think I started this thought and not finished it. She had been making music, she's one of those OG YouTubers that was posting cover songs when she was 14 years old. She got discovered by a major label, got signed, got dropped. But where she quote unquote broke out, as in, luck met preparedness, was 2024 festival season. And that just so happened to be, I was overseas on what used to be my annual sort of 4 to 6 week jaunt across Europe. And I say used to be because it's summertime and I'm here in the United States right now, not holidaying, but that's a different story. Anywho, so I was not participating in festival season. And then there was that disaster that I keep telling you I'm not going to talk about anymore, that I keep talking about. So I was just kind of offline for most of her rise. And still, she could not be ignored or unheard of. And because she was so outspoken, because visually she was so challenging, because she kept saying the quiet part loud and the loud part quiet, the things that most other people weren't using their microphone to talk about. She had to build her platform. She had to go independent. And where a lot of people would have given up and quit is when she really doubled down. And yeah, she made her performance like her stage, as in she is recognizable. You don't need to have ever listened to her music, I'm raising my hand, or be able to list a song of hers. There is a playlist though. And you still would know who she is because she really made herself quite recognizable. Okay, so let's get into it. She's disrupted the norms. She's a queer pop star without the corporate polish. So when she got dropped by her label, she was living in LA at the time. She'd really gone kind of all in. None of her first EP did not land, even though the song on her EP that everybody knows, Pink Pony Club, was released 5 years prior to it actually gaining any traction. I find that really interesting and fascinating. She moved back to Missouri, had to, put her tail between her legs. A lot. I mean, the amount of people that move to LA to make it and don't is astounding and also no surprise. But those that actually call it quits, go back home, keep on keeping on in terms of their creative practice, and then make the comeback. I mean, thank, the gods for the internet. That just didn't happen up until Chappell. And if you know of another example, please absolutely let me know. Or if you have any other artists, I would also love to know about those. So just let me know. Hello at Nicole BZ. Thanks. Her business isn't just challenging the status quo. It's challenging boundaries and safety and expectations around artists and fame. Her shows are theatrical rituals. I mean, she is a drag queen. If you don't know, you can Google that one. But she's openly out. These were things that just when I was growing up, like pop stars could never have pulled off. The world was just not ready for someone who was openly out, openly queer, and a queen. I laugh just because it like even my own mind, it struggles to compare then and now. And I love that now this is possible. And I also I talk about this a lot because I get to work with a lot of younger people and younger women especially, but just the boundaries and the way that these young, female identifying people move through the world is just, you could not compare it to what my 16-year-old self or even what my 25-year-old self was taught had to be done in order to be successful. So Chappell's lyrics don't play by radio rules, but who the fuck listens to terrestrial radio anymore? And that being said, she was still all over it. Like, her image is drag. It's TikTok viral in the raunchiest ways. She is unapologetically extra and real and raw. And it works because it was not designed to fit any mold. And literally it's performance and art like that gave people permission to be raw. Like, the aesthetic of TikTok is wildly different than what started happening in the early days of Instagram. Or, I mean, if you want to go back to like the archaic days of MySpace, everyone was dressed to the nines, was the perfected image of what was expected of their particular character that they were playing, right? So Chappell gave people permission to be in costumed rebellion. She built her platform through independent hustle. She was dropped by Atlantic and she kept going. She wrote new music. She found her people. She signed with a smaller label, but she gave herself creative control. She rebuilt her brand from scratch. She leveraged social media, but without selling out. And she created a live show experience that functions more like a queer revival than a pop concert. And that's how she hit different during the 2024 festival season. Like, do you know what it takes to make the kind of headlines she does, playing the festivals everybody else is playing? It takes 10 years in the making is what it takes. Everything Chappell does is intentional, from her drag visuals to the divine feminine camp that she embodies, her TikToks to her live concerts. It's this codified persona. She's making character-driven art that builds her business while keeping creative sovereignty intact. And to the point where that actually became her platform for a while. Her messaging was all about boundaries and safety and expectations and the demands that the industry makes on what are ultimately just regular people doing their art. She is a blueprint for next gen creator entrepreneurship. She belongs in the lineage of Bowie, reinvention, Dilla, the feel over format, Nina, truth at all costs, and she brings this 21st century digital native community driven femme forward flair. I mean, no one else is doing right now. And she is continually giving shout outs and using her platform to uplift other artists that for the most part feel like they fall into that lineage. So she's repurposing and regenerating her own art. So what would Chappell Roan do? The 21st century entrepreneurship lessons I've certainly gained from the research that I've done on this young trailblazer. She's building her business model on camp, on chaos, and on clarity of herself. One of the things she was quoted as saying is that she felt like her youth was taken away because she got signed at 17. And back in the day, 17 was considered old when you would sign as a like quote unquote pop star. I mean, I think we had Britney parading around as an over-sexualized schoolgirl when she was like 16 years old. In fact, if you were 20 and you didn't have a major label deal yet, you were considered over the hill. She's not just a pop star. Chappell is a case study in radical authenticity, niche audience devotion, and a DIY to diva business acumen. I mean, when you see her on her TikToks, there is no makeup, there is no hairdo. She's in her PJs being fucking real and in the moment. When you see her on stage, it is truly an incredibly intentional and developed character. Like the amount of makeup that goes into that is like astounding to me, let alone the staging and the costuming and the hair. I mean, the nails. Anywho, we're going to talk about how you can choose your label and launch a movement, how you can hyper niche your aesthetics and your brand to build a hyper loyal audience, that performing doesn't have to feel fake. It can actually be this very creative, this very strategic, this very intentional, this very aligned layer of creative sovereignty. And how building in public, if you know, you know, especially through TikToks and live shows and performances, this builds equity with your audience. And lastly, and I think perhaps most importantly, how turning rejection and failure into ritualized growth is a strategy, not just trauma bonding. So when they drop you, you build different. Chappell Roan was dropped by Atlantic and became more powerful without them. In 2020, after releasing her first EP, School Nights, Chappell was dropped. She moved back home. She waited tables. She was a barista. She hustled harder and she kept writing and creating. She never skipped a beat, despite the fact that she was quote unquote busier. Like a lot of creatives, I think, constantly complain. Actually, I shouldn't say that. What I will say is there are creative voices out there who complain about the challenges in maintaining their creative expression and also like being in the matrix and like the hustle harder grind culture. They're investing energy and distracting themselves from their business, aka creating. Chappell's proof that you can do both. And it's interesting. I just had a client session and that was coming up a lot. And again, in my very sort of like limited experience and my learning of this artist, like she very much embodies the both and it's respectful. I get it in a way I didn't before this. So thank you for suggesting it. In 2023, Chappell released The Rise and Fall of a Midwest Princess with Island Records, and it had an indie-style rollout with viral resonance and a performance-first strategy. She went back to her fucking roots and built her audience one fan at a time. She leveraged the tools that she had, aka social media, and she gigged hard. She performed every show like it was her last. Getting dropped didn't end her career. It freed her from the corporate chokehold. She used the downtime not to pivot, but to go full throttle into her identity. She's proof that failure in traditional structures can be the beginning of total creative control. If you want to discover who you are, walk away from everything and everyone that knows you. So what would Chappell Roan do? She'd tell you to make the downfall a plot device, use collapse as character development, and come back louder and in full sequence. Importantly, drag is not a gimmick. It's a framework. Chappell Roan's performances are immersive, theatrical, and drag influenced, and that's by design, not by default. She wasn't trying to get attention. She's not necessarily even playing a character. She is reveling in the opportunity that performance gives all of us, both those involved in the act and those receiving and participating in the observation. We can pretend. We can healthfully, mindfully disassociate and just fucking enjoy ourselves. Just go all out for a moment and be all in. In her own words, she said, "I'm a pop star because of drag queens, period." Her stage shows have themes, rituals, and aesthetics more aligned with a drag review than traditional pop. Fans dress for the shows. They participate in the themed outfits. They create a shared experience and architect this relationship. It's like early Gaga meets a community seance. And there's all of these inside jokes. There's all of these Easter eggs that only they're in on, and not in like a Taylor Swift. She's not going to be in the series. And that's all I'm going to say for all you Swifties out there. But actually, fuck, now that I say that, never say never, right? God damn it. Anywho, fans dress for shows and themed outfits. Okay, TikTok is full of user-generated content from her concerts, many referring to it as gay church. She didn't just build a fan base. She created a participatory mythology. Every show is a space for identity, self-expression, and chosen family. We're all fam at the Chappell Roan show. She doesn't perform at people. She plays with them. So what would Chappell Roan do? Chappell Roan do? Sorry, I keep wanting to call her Chappell. That's another disruptive artist. I literally had to message my producer, Shannon, my young woman in charge, and say, Chappell or Chappell? She said, like a church. And I was like, preach. What would Chappell Roan do? She'd tell you, don't sell an audience a product, invite them into your world. Make your brand a runway, a confessional, a mirror ball. I do love that. Viral without selling out. She leverages TikTok virality without compromising message, tone, or weirdness. Red Wine Supernova and Casual gained massive attraction on TikTok, but not because like they gamed the algorithm or there are these like fluffy performance pieces. You see so much on social media that was made for social media, right? Roan's captions, visuals, and production style are intentionally campy and lo-fi. This resists the sleek polish of mainstream pop and also gives people permission to be real. It's this wild intersection of like, I could do that too. I feel like I'm a part of this. It's relatable. And yet it's this metaverse where we can all exist and co-create together. And it feels safe and exciting and alluring and has created some problems with her and her relationships with her fans, which we'll get a little bit into. But she's quoted as saying, I want people to see the seams. That's part of the aesthetic. She uses the platform as a stage. She uses the internet as her performance hall, not a trap, right? There's no thirst traps. She doesn't mimic trends. She remixes them into her visual language. So she tell you, if you're going to go viral as yourself. Don't trend hop, truth hop. Show up weird, wonderful, and real, even if it's chaotic. So one of the things that she's known for is this parasocial relationship that my friend Walia and I spoke about in her interview in the Relatable series, but Walia is deep in the research of. There is something this happens, this phenomenon where you as an audience member, shall we say, whether you're a viewer or a participant or a fan, and this has been happening for ages. There's an actual sort of psychosis that can develop through a parasocial relationship where you think that you're actually friends with this person, you know them, or perhaps you're romantic with them, or they're creating for you. There's this, again, psychosis where people think there's something going on that doesn't actually exist. And fans have this expectation of their artists around attention, around response, around giving, and it's unhealthy for everybody. And she absolutely used her platform to not just talk about how artists get used by the industry, but also by their fans. And people were really upset about this because, again, not a lot of people are talking about that. And there is this certain sense of entitlement. Well, if I've spent X amount of dollars to see you live, if I've watched all of your things, if I've shared you with my friends, and that's why you're more popular, you owe me. Says who? That's actually a very colonialist concept of ownership and proprietorship, that just because I pay for something or I give it my time and attention, it owes me something. Absolutely not. That's your choice. And there's a lot of deprogramming around that I'm not going to get into, but she got absolutely vilified by her public, the masses, for saying like, no, I'm not available for your autograph. No, you may not take my picture. No, I am not going to reply to every fucking comment on every single one of it, like so on and so forth. People felt like she was complaining. She's been known on the red carpet to speak her mind as well, to tell media that she's not available and not as political words and terms. And it was just, for someone so young, so quote unquote inexperienced, someone who should be hungry, I'm using air quotes for a lot of that, there were expectations on how she should behave and what she should agree to. And she's absolutely right around the mental health implications, the physical health implications. We've all seen what happens when you make artists perform at a certain level. I referred to one of them earlier in the episode. And another reason I actually have a deep respect for and was like, okay, let's go in terms of this episode. Bowie exemplified this as well. There's something to the mystère. Another artist I'm going to talk about, like, doesn't do interviews. Not giving people 110% of you 1,000% of the time can allow this co-creation, this artistry that doesn't exist with what was for a long time, this complete and total Venn diagram of fan and artist, because this expectation was like this very unrealistic need to know what's happening all of the time. It's like the whole paparazzi kind of phenomenon. But I think Chappell is once again reminding everybody that she's an artist because she's creating for herself. And if other people like that, that's fantastic. Obviously, she appreciates her people. She's built this diehard fucking community, but she doesn't owe them anything, most especially her health or her happiness or her independence or her sovereignty. So I think 3 real takeaways for and from Chappell are: you turn rejection into ritual. Don't just bounce back. Come back campy. Every no becomes part of the performance. Every failure is a feather in the wig. Make your lowest moment look so good, it becomes your messaging. Like, people know, like, they look to Chappell to ruffle some feathers and then, throw them in her costume. Design for devotion, not just conversion. Create for the people who get it, not for the masses. Roan doesn't need everyone. She needs the ones who show up and glitter and scream every word. Whether you're building a product or a brand or a platform or a space or a movement, make it feel like home for you and your niche. And lastly, there's a resounding thread being pulled through all of these artists as well. Make your weirdness your workflow. And I hope you take that one most closely to heart from this episode, at least. Stop trying to optimize. Chappell didn't shrink her identity to fit the music industry's mold. She blew it up. Whatever makes you weird is already working. That's you, babe. Build systems that support it and you, even on your worst day. Never water it down. Never silence you, your voice, how you do. There's a playlist just like all of the other artists. I don't know Chappell's music, so please add to it. This is one of the shorter ones, only because this is like I said, I was the least familiar, but like, she's growing on me. I get it now. And I appreciate that. So I'd love to know your thoughts on both this artist, on this series. If you have any ideas in terms of other artists that need to be here, I'm having so much fun with this. I think this is going to evolve. I've already got a list of different visual artists, but there have been just so many disruptive creators that we've been lucky enough to experience on this earth. So I'm open. Yeah, sorry, I was just thinking about like even like YouTubers. Like, I'm learning so much about everything now that I'm kind of going all in on that platform. But anywho, thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. That's all I got. Bye.